so that like one person having an internet access point, and he got valuable information, whatever, health information, political information, and then he just, you know, had a radio show and just, you know, spread it around his area. So, and people can benefit from this in this, or, you know, this sense. But, you know, what the whole digital divide thing is about, you know, promote democratization and better living standards, and that's very hard to measure how you reach this by giving people access to the net. But I think everyone knows that, you know, you can, with using the net, you can make your voice heard much better if you do not have access to the internet. So, but my criticism I talked about, because there are lots of failed aid programs, and the activists I talked to, they reported of some programs, digital divide programs, so where they provided lots of computers to the countryside, to very poor regions, but the people there didn't even have electricity, and so no one just talked about this, or no one thought about this. So the concepts are lacking. So I think we have to be careful with that. There are lots of failed programs out there.
I'd like to comment on the issue. I'm here. I'd like to comment on the issue that developing free and open source softwares in developing countries wouldn't help them to earn money or to avoid the brain drain. I think the opposite could be the case. If we can get more of these guys on board to helping to develop, then they share more parts of the code, and so they have more possibilities to get hired, to implement new features or fix stuff or do consulting. You don't have to be on site all the time. You can perhaps sometimes do it from remote, and I think that's a new chance. I guess most of you who have developed open source software had this situation where they get asked to program some more for money. And to take this one step further, there's a company called JBoss, and they have a concept like professional open source, where they hire contributing developers full-time, and they don't require them to move in another country. So if you make yourself heard and visible in that community, the chances are quite high that you get hired with a Western standard pay, even from Africa or China or something like that. And I think that way you have a virtual company, and you can more evenly distribute the money over different countries. So it's no longer a necessity to be in that Western country or that developed country. I can't understand.
It's a very nice dream to say that companies with money can pay Western wages to people in Africa to develop the software, but the reality is that it's being outsourced to India, and you can get people with a great education in India who are going to be able to have a much higher productivity than somebody who simply learned by looking at a few tutorials online. The reality is it's not equal.
Okay, I don't know how many projects you have seen that have been successful from India, that are very special kind of projects. And it's not a dream, it's reality. Look at JBoss, look at whom they're hiring, and look at the guys and where they're working from. So that is, I agree that it's not, we haven't seen much of it yet. It just starts to begin with open source and professional development of open source. But that's definitely a way to do it.
I found it extremely interesting what you were talking about, and I would ask if you can talk a little bit more about Latin America, because I had the impression that with the government of Lula and the PT, it was not anymore the situation that nobody was talking about it, but that open source free software was extremely pushed in a certain sense. And what happened in that event?
Do you want to know why?
Yes, if you can talk
why
more
Brazil?
about what is happening in Brazil, for example,
Yeah.
because I think it's an example where open source free software matters.
Yeah, so they have a very active free software open source scene, and they are very politicized. So, and what they managed is, I think one of their success stories is that they really managed to integrate many non-hackers into the movement. So most of the time programmers, they program and they do not have so much interest in policy issues, but they managed to integrate so people from social sciences, whatever, and so this whole thing started on a state basis. So they have a federal system as well, and so they had close ties to the worker parties. And when they came to power, so they just knew the people, they had the ear of the politicians, and they have very great arguments for it. So they succeeded. And another point is, which I think is pretty important, is that they have at least a lot of female users. So, and of course, you know, if you want to make free software mainstream, but it's just the boys who use it, it's not going to become mainstream. But they managed, you know, to integrate more women, and they work closely with policymakers. And so, but another thing is that so they always often use the words of, you know, just using Windows. That is like a kind of electronic colonization. And we want to do our own things. We want to take care of our own business, and we can do it. And so free software offers a lot of great opportunities in this aspect. And one more thing about Brazil. So, of course, it is great to have strong ties to one party, which they had, and so what happens is when Lula, the Workers' Party, they came into government, federal government, so they really called people there. There's an NGO or, you know, free software community there, they are called Projeto Software Libre, and they called them and say, so we want to migrate, can't you guys help? Because you are the experts, we are politicians. And so this all got then pretty quick on the agenda, and a lot of happened. Problem is just because now the Workers' Party is suffering from a corruption scandal, and so chances are likely, or chances are not good, that this policy will continue when they have to step out of office, because then you have again so the other parties, conservative parties, and they are often now just against free software, not because they know anything about it. It's more like a reflex. Workers' Party is for it, so we have to be against it. So, and the people there are now very active or trying to convince, you know, the broader public and to convince other parties, because they just don't want that the end of the Lula government will be the end of the pro-free software policy. I think, yeah, so it's 2 p.m. So thank you.